Hello. A lot of people ask me what's the difference between a regular two-stage snow thrower and a heavy-duty two-stage snow thrower. So today we're going to look at a typical two-stage snow thrower and a typical heavy-duty one. Let's get started.
Down in the dirt.
Okay, the typical two-stage snow thrower that I'm going to look at today is the one on the left. That's the Troy-Bilt Storm 2860. That's very comparable to the 28-inch Cub Cadet, 28-inch Craftsman, 28-inch MTD, and other machines like that. The price usually runs somewhere between $800, $900, and $1,000, depending on what features the snowblower has. The one on the right is the Toro Power Max HD. This one happens to be the 928 OAE model. This one is comparable to the Toro, all the Power Max line, and also to the Aaron's Deluxe and Platinum lines. So this will give you a good idea of what the differences are for the price. The heavy-duty snowblowers typically run between $1,200 and $3,000. To start, you notice that the height of the impeller housing is about the same. Just about all of them are within an inch or two of each other. These new ones are nice from the standpoint is they're a lot taller than what your old machines used to be. You know, the old Simplicities, the old John Deeres, the old Craftsman. So they'll take a much deeper drift without the snow running over the back side of them. The material, the metal thickness of the regular machines and the thickness of the heavy-duty machines, the heavy-duty machines are just a little bit thicker. Toro doesn't use a real thick metal. They use a high tensile strength steel instead. So they won't look as thick as, say, the metal on an Aaron's, but they are quite a bit stronger. One of the other features that they have is, for example, the way this is stamped. This is just a little edge here. It's smooth, but Toro takes and wraps this all the way around so that it's a nice solid edge here. You don't ever have, you can put stuff on there, you never have to worry about bending it. The housing itself, as I explained in the walk around on the Troy-Bilt, they put stamped sides in here to make this thinner metal more rigid. Toro, with their high strength steel, doesn't need to do as many stampings, so their sides are still very rigid. One other little feature that the Toros use is, if you'll notice, the top of the auger housing is slanted back just a little bit from the very front. What that does is that allows the auger to chew the snow, and more of the snow will drop down into the auger and into the housing, meaning you can get more snow in faster and it doesn't roll over the top side quite so much. It's just Toro is the only one that does that, and it does make a little bit of difference when you're out there blowing snow in deep drifts. Your typical two-stage machine has a steel impeller, excuse me, and they're typically 12 inches. A few of them are 9 or 10 inches. The flights on the MTD made machines are closed flight. On some of the other brands, they're open flight. They move the snow through the middle to the middle of course. They're fairly lightweight. You don't really bend one very often because they do have a lot of shear pins on them, so they break, the shear pin will break before you bend things up. The Gearcase on a regular two-stage is just about always aluminum, and it has a gasket in it. Sometimes this gasket will leak. If you'll notice that the impeller itself, it's just a sheet steel, a little angle on it, and then there's usually a bracket on the back side to hold it up steady. The heavy duty machines typically have a 14-inch auger on them, and they'll have a heavy duty gear case. Toro's use an aluminum housing, but if you notice there's no seam in it. It's a top load. In other words, it has a cover on the top so it doesn't leak, doesn't spill any oil out. Probably never have to add any oil to this one at all. Back in the impeller is also made out of steel, and they'll have a different type of blade on them. For example, the Toro has a cupped blade, so it catches the snow and throws it out faster, and so it really takes less horsepower to throw the same amount of snow. And of course they have it completely welded up so it hangs on there well. If you look at some of the other brands, the heavy duty machines also, they have bigger cups, and they're a lot stronger than your typical your regular two-stage machines. One thing about the open auger design is open auger designs allow the snow to churn and get more air in it. That way, with more air in the snow, it throws out better. Heavy wet snow in particular, it doesn't clog up and it throws it out of the chute. Toro has a patent on what they call their anti-clogging system. And their anti-clogging system back here is a big, large open area on the top of this. They'll have a large impeller, a 14-inch impeller, and then this big, large area here. If there's too much snow in the machine, it just kind of offloads it, keeps it from trying to jam up through the chute, plug the chute, so on and so forth. Your heavy-duty machines also have a much larger output hole here, and it's smooth. There's nothing to catch the snow and keep the snow from flowing out the chute. Scraper bars, all of them use a steel scraper bar on the bottom. None of them have a reversible one anymore. Toro's is kind of interesting because it has a little angle on it. No, it doesn't. It's just the light. Well, never mind for that idea. But it does have more bolts holding it in, so it's stronger, it's more rigid. That's about the big differences. One last thing on the shaft itself, auger shaft itself. Typically, a typical two-stage snow thrower, it'll be 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch. On a heavy duty, it will be 3/4 or 1 inch. Heavier duty shafts up front. Typically, a regular snow thrower will throw snow 20 to 30 feet. On a really good day, 35 feet. Your heavy duty machines have a 14-inch impeller in them, and they'll typically throw snow 30 to 40 feet and even further. Some of them will throw as far as 60 feet if you got to put enough horsepower behind them. So front end wise, there is quite a bit of difference. If you're just looking at it in the store, you may not be able to see it, but there is quite a bit of difference between the regular two-stage machine and the heavy duty machines. Another difference between a heavy-duty two-stage and a regular two-stage snowblower is the heavy-duty ones tend to have stronger belts on them. For example, this Toro has a heavy-duty composite belt. That's the same type of belt that you find on your good lawnmowers and zero turns. They're designed to stand a lot of horsepower, a lot of abuse. Ariens even goes as far as to put 2 of these belts on their Deluxe and Platinum snowblowers. And let me move it around. Yeah, there I got it. Your regular two-stage machines have a standard belt. It is rated to handle the loads that you get with a snowblower, but you'll find that if you happen to freeze your impeller up, a lot of times you'll break your impeller, or you break your belt. A lot of times you'll break your belt. Or if you get something lodged in there and the shear pins don't break, you'll tend to smoke this belt a lot quicker. It'll wear out a lot faster than the belts on the heavy-duty machines. Chutes. Everybody has their own way of controlling the chute. So, does a heavy-duty model have a better chute control than the regular ones? Yes and no. On the Troy-Bilt is one of the last models that still is using a poly chute. There's really nothing wrong with a poly chute. It's just more marketing. People want metal, so that's what you get. Toro this year, Toro has had poly chutes forever, but this year they switched to a metal chute on the Power Max and the Power Match HD line, just because that's what the people wanted. So they are listening to you. Troy-Bilt, Cub Cadet, their machines. Cub Cadet, for example, has a metal chute now. They have a deflector control up here that moves it back and forth. The friction control on the chute is out on the chute. You have to tighten the nut down on it. The some of the other brands have notches, but typically your Troy-Bilt, your Cub Cadet, your Craftsman, MTD, all those have the little friction control. So it takes a little bit to adjust that. They've gone to a quick chute now, so it's just a couple turns back and forth. Your heavy-duty machines, all of them have a quick chute of some type. This one here, the Toro, is just move a lever about 6 inches and goes all the way from one direction to the other. Other machines like the Ariens, they also have a control where you just move it 4 or 5 inches. They're built heavy, they're built to last. One thing that Toro has done with their heavy duty line this year is they put a double joint in the deflector. That allows you to get closer to your discharge, closer to your snowblower if you need to, and it doesn't blow snow back for you. Also, you can extend it way out so it'll go as far as possible. Your regular chute is usually a 4 or 5 inch hole on the bottom. Your heavy duty models are typically a 5 or 6 inch hole on the bottom of them. So they will throw more snow out without clogging up. That's a big factor for a lot of people nowadays because we get a lot of heavy wet snow. You know, anybody out on the East Coast, you'll want as big of a chute as you possibly can to throw the snow out. Heavy duty machine, typically you have nice heavy duty cables on it. They're sealed on the end, they have rubber boots on them, they have leaded or molded connectors on the ends. They're going to hold up for years and years and years. Another big area to look at on the difference between a regular two-stage snow thrower and a heavy-duty one are the engines. Most regular snow throwers, say in the 28-inch size, have between a 7 and a 10 horsepower engine, depending on how much you want to spend. The less expensive ones, for example, this one here has a 243 cc engine, which is somewhere around 8 horsepower. On the heavy duty machines, the engine sizes typically range from 9 all the way up to 16 horsepower. The more horsepower, of course, the more snow is going to get pulled through the machine, and typically the farther it throws. One of the other nice features of the heavy duty machines is they tend to have a big block motor in them compared to what I call a standard engine. Standard engines take about 20 ounces of oil. The heavy duty ones typically take 32 ounces or more of oil. So just from that fact alone, more oil gives you longer life on your oil, which is going to give you a longer engine life. Your typical two-stage snow thrower, most of them do not have a fuel shutoff on them. So you need to be real careful with your fuel. Make sure you're using fresh fuel. Make sure you have a stabilizer in it. Of course, I like to use seafoam, because seafoam has a cleaner also in the to help keep your carburetors clean. And you also want to use some fairly fresh fuel. I like to say within 30 days. If it's getting any older than that, go ahead and pour that in your car or your pickup truck and go out and get fresh. And nowadays, with today's fuel and cold weather, you really want to make for sure that you're using a sealed gas can. Sealed gas can traps all those vapors that these snowblowers really need to start for you in this cold weather. If your engine has a fuel shutoff, like this heavy duty model, you can take and turn the fuel off, the fuel shutoff off, let the carburetor run dry, and you tend to have fewer problems with fuel and starting issues. Of course, I do recommend, fairly fresh fuel, sealed gas can, and stabilizer in these also. Most of the heavy-duty machines have a 3/4 gallon tank or larger. A lot of the smaller and less expensive machines have a half-gallon tank on them. So a half gallon is going to get you somewhere around an hour of run time on these engines. The larger tank is going to give you well over an hour run time. I'm not going to talk too much about tires and transmissions. Let's see if I can get this to move in here a little bit. Your typical regular two-stage has a 15 or 16-inch tire on it. This one happens to have the airless tires. You'll find a few nowadays, like the Cub Cadets, that also have a 16-inch tire. Your heavy-duty models will have a 16-inch tire, and if you notice, they're not near as wide. They're only about 4.5 inches wide instead of 5 or so. That works real good for digging into snow. You actually get a lot better traction with a tall, narrower tire than you do with a smaller, wider tire. Some of the other things, and I'm not going to actually move this camera around because it doesn't really matter to show you on the outside. Transmission wise, the heavy duty machines have heavier gears, heavier shafts, ball bearings throughout the transmission. The regular two-stage machines typically have smaller shafts, smaller gears. Some of them even have bronze bearings inside of them, depending on your price point. Let's talk about more about control cables and stuff like that. Your normal two-stage snow throwers usually use control cables that will hold up well. They are never quite as heavy duty as the ones on a heavy duty two-stage machine. For example, these control cables on this Troy-Bilt, they're about an 1/8 inch cable. They're open, so there's no sheath on them. They are set up so that they're basically straight lines from the handles down to a pulley or to a lever. It is fairly easy to get them caught, so you have to be a little careful when you're moving them around, taking them on and off a trailer and stuff like that, that you don't hit them and break them. On a heavy duty machine, they're usually sheath cables, and the cables have adjustments built into the cable itself. Let me move this up just a little bit. And all of your adjustments are made out here on the cables themselves. The shifter rods are usually 3/8 inch or thicker steel instead of a cable. They don't use a spring-loaded mechanism to hold them in a certain position. It just feels more robust. Whether it actually is or not, well, that's for you to decide. Also, adjusting again the clutch and the impeller tension is very easy with these cables because it's just this spring here. Let me see if I can get my finger out of the way. It's just this spring here and over here that you tighten or loosen the nuts on that, and that adjusts your tension. You will notice that the size of the transmission cases are quite a bit different on a regular machine and a heavy duty machine, and that kind of talks to how strong the components are inside the machine itself. One other thing that you'll find on a heavy duty machine is the handles may be the same diameter, but they'll do something to them to make them even more solid. For example, on this Toro now, they have, let's see if I can get this closer. Can I get it closer? No, that's as far as it goes. Let me get my thumb on this one here. They've put reinforcements down here on the bottom so that there's no give or spring or anything to the handles. Over time, that won't flex and break. It makes for a lot better experience using the machine because there's not so much bounce in it. Everything is nice and solid. It's going to last longer, and it feels better to use. Most of them nowadays have all gone to this locking type nut arrangement, so you don't have the plastic ones that strip out on you and get loose there. Toro and Aaron's and all those have also gone to that. I don't know if there's anything else that I really want to talk about between the differences. I'm going to take both of these machines out when I get some snow and allow you to see how they throw and see the difference between a typical 8-horse engine with this 12-inch impeller and the 9-horse with this larger 14-inch impeller. See which one throws better, see which one handles the heavy snow better. So I will say that your typical two-stage snow thrower works for many people, particularly if you're here in the Midwest. You don't get a lot of heavy wet snows. You get a lot more of that 2, 3, 10-inch snows, And if you don't have to throw your snow a long ways, these work well. 8-horse, 9-horse engines on these 12-inch impellers works pretty good. Other areas of the country that get a lot of snow, in other words 80 to 100 to 200 inches of snow, areas that get a lot of heavy wet snow, like Boston area, upstate New York, even Long Island for that matter. Anywhere where you get lake effect, and of course a lot of the Rocky Mountain areas where you get the heavy wet snow. The heavy duty machines are a much better value for you because they'll throw the snow further, so you don't get so much drifting along your driveways. They'll throw the snow faster, bigger motors, and if you have long driveways, stuff like that, they will last much longer than your typical 2-stage machine. So it is worth the money if you want to spend it on a heavy-duty snowblower compared to a regular 2-stage. All right, any questions or comments, leave them below, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Hopefully soon I'm going to have some snow so we can actually go out and see how these work. So thank you, appreciate you watching this, and bye.
Down in the dirt.